Welcome to the Post. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Anthony Mingione. And how are you?
Feels like playoff weather outside there, Russ, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A
It's
little
kind of
bit.
nice.
A
Yeah, in
little
the
bit.
60s. I'm sure it's not in the 60s where Mike is, and Michael Jello, how are you?
It's in the 40s, so the mountain range on my driveway is now like hilly country. So, and I feel sort of alone here because you're wearing headphones, Anthony's wearing headphones, and I'm sans headphones.
That's okay. I mean, it's just the way I chose it
Well,
today.
Russ is the only one with a hat on today.
True.
But Russ and I outnumber you in hoodies.
That's true, too. My collection of hoodies is big. All right, so let's talk about an age-old thing in sports where guys try and get themselves traded, and we saw and it doesn't happen as much in hockey. You know, Ryan O'Reilly was a good example of that, but more recently, I saw Mark Scheik, put up a post when Chicago was playing against Columbus, and he asked Seth Jones, "Hey, what would you think about coming back?" And Seth Jones be like, "Yeah, I'm okay with it." And then he spoke to Zach Werenski, "Hey, how are you doing? What do you think about if you had Seth Jones back?" He'd be like, "Yeah, I'd be okay with it." And then, of course, the next day, the Blackhawks get outshot like 93-36, and they interview Seth Jones, and he's just like, we're the same team we were since day one. What the hell is going on here? So clearly, he's trying to get traded.
Yeah, but apparently, with asking those guys, Jones that question, surprising Chicago doesn't turn around and say this isn't a tampering situation.
Well,
but I get it. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's Chicago's got a long hill to climb here, and a certain point here that I'm sure Seth Jones probably looks at the situation and says, to himself, I'd like to at least call my shot if I don't fit the window for Chicago, and he probably does not. That it's
but what's the window? The window's like, it seems like it's 10 years right now.
No, that's the point. He's looking at it by the time it would be the window. He sees it's a long window, and that's my point. He's going to say, I need to go to a team that's closer to winning now. But the thing is, that's you signed on with that contract, and it's we talk about buyer beware. It's this is what kind of happens here. You just don't know at the time you sign the contract.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like because you look at the Blackhawks, and I saw them play Toronto on Sunday, not personally, but I mean I saw it on TV or in person. I mean, but. The one thing I give them credit for is they're not doing it Edmonton Oilers. They're not throwing Nazar and Korchinski and Lev Shunov to the Wolves. They're playing in Rockford. They're giving them a taste of playing in the NHL. Bedard is different. Bedard won the Calder. He's, he's a star, but, and he's sort of like right now feels like a lone guy because that team is terrible. And I feel for Seth Jones but he sort of put himself in this position because he sort of forced his way out of Columbus and then signed the 8-year deal with Chicago. So, I mean, now it's sort of buyer's regret.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Roberto Luongo. After a while, Roberto Luongo was like, boy, I hate this contract. I wish I never signed it. But he never said he wished he didn't have the money. He never said that.
No, of course not. You just that's the trade-off. You're signing. You're taking money. It's money for freedom,
right?
At the end of the day.
And so, this is why GMs at times do have to trade veteran players because they don't most of the time want to go through a long rebuild. This is the way sports is. So then you got Luke Shen, who basically said everything we've ever said about the Nashville Predators, like nobody could score here, except usually it's nobody on the Predators that says it. He said it, but that's, Anthony, it's been the truth for a while now.
Yeah, it's just talk about a team that went into the season, and I think I know I was kind of cautious about them. I mean,
I was cautious too.
You make those signings, but again, when you build a certain way, going in from the end of last season, and then you add on those players, and again, for certain, it's exciting. If you're a Nashville Predator fan, to have a Steven Stamkos, a Jonathan Marchessault on your team, But at the end of the day, it's just organizational philosophy versus what those players do. it just didn't work. It really did not work.
But the weird thing is that last year, before they add Stamkos, before they sign Brady Shea, before they add Marchessault, they made this run at the end of the season. Ryan O'Reilly had a great year. They added a couple guys like Zucker at the deadline. They got into the playoffs, and they did pretty well against Vancouver. I don't think they were favored, even though Vancouver, they had Artur Svilovs in goal. But you would think that this would, the players that they added would have improved them, and it's just the wrong mix. It's the wrong chemistry. Maybe it's the wrong coach. But you added a bunch of, with the exception of Shea, you added a bunch of 30-plus-year-olds.
That's the thing.
Well, that was the problem. That's why I said I thought they were a bubble team, because I saw Barry Trotz move out guys that I never would have moved out. We talk about Fabro. We talk about Tomasino. They didn't get anything for him.
No.
Like these, Tomasino 0, Fabro. I know Tomasino a 4th-round pick or something, and nothing for Fabro. And Askarov they couldn't get rid of quick enough because he turned over the net. And it's just like he tried
just the whole vibe.
The vibe got bad.
Vibe got bad. It did. The vibe absolutely got bad.
Yeah, but we ripped Trotz, and I think rightfully for the Askarov deal, because you don't like the guy who's one of the best goaltending prospects in the league because he tosses the net over in celebration. Okay. And we said this before.
I wasn't too surprised it was more than just that.
I'm sure.
Oh, it may have been some other things, but he made that part really public.
But the whole thing was, it was Barry Trotz showed he was a rookie general manager by the fact that he signed Saros before he traded Askarov and immediately undercut his own leverage. He should have traded Askarov and had the contract for Saros in the drawer, and then because they did not get what everybody expected for one of the top goaltending prospects in the game. They just did not.
No, that's true. And so, we move on. When I noticed this yesterday when I was at the Flyers Penguins and they only had 4 scouts, I'm like, where are all the scouts? They were all in Montreal, including the Flyers. They sent their pro scout there too.
Yes.
And so Montreal was the epicenter of where a lot of teams were.
Sure.
And
they missed being, you know why? They missed going to Ziggy's.
Yeah. They wanted to get some hot dogs, but they're also open for business. And so we know Jake Evans is on the block. That's obvious. But I don't think the Flyers are after a guy like Jake Evans. Now, I think a guy the Flyers could be after could be someone like Mike Matheson in a trade. And so, because I know he's been rumored to be out there. And so, I wonder for just like how many guys the Canadians will trade. But as far as the Flyers, they're definitely going to try and make some moves. I don't know how many are going to be successful.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure.
That's the
either.
whole thing. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that in terms of, and a lot of, it's interesting how going into the 4 nations, there was a lot of hot and heavy conversation about, teams rotate, going sniffing around Rasmus Ristolainen, and that has cooled off obviously substantially, especially, Kevin Kurtz reporting.
Yeah, he posted that.
About that as well earlier today. So to me, it's tough. Again, for me, and we had this conversation, you and I had this conversation, we all had this conversation off air, was, again, I think GMs have to be at least a little bit cautious. They're looking at Ristolainen going, this has been, he's been better, but I think there's enough teams out there that are probably like, interesting, just not at what you're asking for.
Right.
Maybe next year, again, it could be a case where if you get to the off season, you get a little bit more time, or sometime next year, potentially, you might, and Ristolainen is doing what he's doing now, and he has relative health, because that's always a question with Ristolainen is his availability. Right. There's questions about his availability.
Right. Playing him on the power play is not changing anybody's mind.
No, it's certainly not. I mean, hell of a shot, obviously, but the thing is, he has to have time to uncork that thing for
correct. It took a long time for that shot yesterday.
Exactly.
I have no idea how Ned Yalkovic missed it. I really don't.
7 years ago, when he was the point guy in the power play in Buffalo, he was okay at it, but not anymore.
But again, younger player at that point.
Yeah.
And Ristolainen's a different player now. He's just in terms of the way he plays. I think he's as I said to you guys before, as we've discussed before, I think Bradshaw has shaped him into I'd say like a number 4 defenseman. I think a really good, if he's on a championship team, I think he could be like, if he's with a more offensively minded partner, but he can also, again, end of the day, Ristolainen does have a good, I think he has a good stretch pass. And when he gets good vision, that's good. It's just, I always had a little bit of caution here. And I think they're kind of hoping as we get closer to the deadline that they're able to extract a little bit more. But I wouldn't blame the Flyers if they feel like, they're not getting what they're looking for. Maybe they are. Oh, again, you can look at it and say maybe they are overshooting. They can do that though if they want to over.
No, it's fair. They don't have to trade Ristolainen, but Mike, they do kind of have to trade Scott Laughton. They have to make a decision on that one.
I was going to say it's like I'm looking for the friggin' Mega Millions ticket, but I'm not going to get it. I mean, come on. I mean, and that's the thing with Danny Briere. It's like, I mean, okay, it's incumbent upon every general manager to ask for as much as you can get for a player. No doubt, but you have to be reasonable. And for a player like Ristolainen, who I know well from Buffalo, who's a right-hand shot, who's a physical defenseman, he's not that guy anymore. He's, now, I mean, he's big. He's not completely immobile, but the injury question for a team who's a contender like, say, a Winnipeg or a Dallas who might be looking to add a right-shot defenseman, or maybe a Florida, the durability is a question. And Laughton, I mean, give me a friggin' break. You're asking for a first-round pick for a guy who's, the best year he had, I think, was 18 goals. He's probably a 35 to 40 point center, and you're asking for a first-round pick. Go screw yourself. I mean, if I'm another general manager, I'm like, you want a second-round pick for him? Fine. Yeah, because he's got a year left in the contract and he's making $3 million, which isn't ridiculous. But he's not a third line center. I think he might be a third line winger. He might be a fourth line center. I don't think he's a third line center, and I don't think he could ever be a second line center. So Danny,
I don't know if I would say I don't think he's. I'm not going to say he can't be a third. I think if you got a team that's got really good really good pivots in front of them, then in that circumstance, I absolutely think he can be a third line center for a team. And
he can play the part. I don't know for a whole season.
I don't know for a whole season. My whole thing is with Laughton is the fact that his versatility in some theories, you would say, hey, that's an advantage. But in some cases, if you're trying to present him for value, especially with the first round pick, I think what's going to happen here in the last few days is that if Briere is hoping for, if he's hoping for first round value, let's say that instead.
Right.
So if you're talking about a pick,
a former first round pick,
a former first round pick and and you're getting something back,
right.
A good young player that you can envision for the future for your team. Then I think then I do think that is a possibility. I think if you're talking first round pick, I mean, you're talking a couple. I mean, at this point now, it'd have to be a few years down the line. I don't think it would certainly not be a 20. Philly's got 3 first round picks.
Like
they got 3 first round picks this year. At this moment, I don't think anybody's going to give you a 2026 for him.
No.
Could I be wrong on that? Somebody gets desperate with an injury.
No.
For Laughton, no. I think you're probably projecting a 27, 28.
Yeah.
If you really, really want that first round pick, but then you got to speak to that room as well, because I think that room initially took a little bit of a hit with the Frost over a month ago with the Frost and Farabee trade. They had some time away, and now they've won a few in a row, and they're starting to feel good again. If you're Danny Briere, I feel like almost like you have to at least hit on that value to be able to kind of tell your locker room that, we knew how valuable he was, and we weren't going to move him off unless we got first round value. And I think if you're asking for a straight up first round pick, it may be tough. But if you're trying to get a couple of things that could be commiserate with that level of value for Laughton, you can spin it.
Okay. And just going back to Montreal for a second. I mean, right now it's it's Evans, it's Armia, it's David Savard. It might be Dvorak, although we talked about Dvorak in terms of and I don't know
if Dvorak has much of a market. Savard does.
Right. And, and if they find somebody dumb enough to take Josh Anderson off their hands and, because he keeps getting hurt all the time. But I mean, that's about it. So, I mean,
I think Matheson too. I think you could throw him in a hockey trade because he's only 30 years old. He is an offensive defenseman, but I think they might be willing to give him up on the right circumstances.
And and the funny thing is that, Elliot Friedman mentioned this, in terms of Seth Jones. that a team like Florida, if Tkachuk is out for the rest of the season, that a Seth Jones might make sense. I mean, Matheson has been in Florida before, so I mean that might make sense for them. And they did lose a Montour as a puck moving defenseman, so that
makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The only thing I say about Jones in Florida is okay for this year because you got this LTIR space.
Right.
You're going to now spend every bit of cap space for next year on Seth Jones. Like that doesn't make sense.
If you're trying to create if you're trying to create somewhat of a Vegas East scenario, then you got to shed in other spots.
Well, it would mean maybe Chicago retaining some salary,
Oh, I think that's going to be pretty much a given here. I don't think anybody's going to necessarily take Jones at full.
Oh no, you have to retain
full value. Chicago's going to definitely end up retaining in some form for their value.
And you pretty much could give up any hope of re-signing Sam Bennett if you traded for Seth Jones, because Bennett's going to probably ask for $7.5 to $8 million, and he might take that. He might get that on the open market. He might get more on the open market.
He might get more. Yeah, I mean, so that's a choice. As far as Dan B, he puts up in the chat room, he's just talking about Detroit trades, and he could talk about Detroit trades now because they're in the mix, and they also cleared cap space. They traded Ville Husso for nothing. Yeah, and so they are going to do something.
Well, okay. The weird thing is that the overinterpretation of this Husso dump deal to Anaheim. I mean, a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, that means they're going to trade Gibson," but they have, they were in Buffalo last night. Dostal played pretty well. Oscar Donsk is their backup because Gibson's just coming back off of IR. But apparently Klang, their goaltender in San Diego, was injured. Yes. And now the thing is here, I mean, I wonder what the future considerations are, and usually future considerations are nothing,
almost nothing, or very little.
And you're taking a $4.75 million contract that 1 point something is buried.
That's a
pretty big favor.
It's a big favor, but you also Anaheim really wants to push this San Diego Gulls team into the playoffs,
right?
Yes.
And they probably look at it and say, we're willing to make that we're willing to take that on with Husso, because that will provide players who will be on the big club an opportunity to play important hockey and not have that taken away from them.
Yeah.
And that could be very important for them going forward.
Now, I will say, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to burst Dan B's bubble, because I'd like to know, in this, you're saying Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram to Detroit. Are you prepared to give up Sandin Pellikka and Lucas Raymond? Because that's the only way that Kevin Adams is doing that deal, because he's not going to trade these guys for first-round picks and prospects. He wants players who can play right now. And if you're trading your number 2 center and your number 2 defenseman, and what are you getting back? So
that one's a tough one, but they will make a trade. Yes. I don't know who they're looking for yet. We'll determine that down the road in a few days for sure. I do think a goalie on the move, though, could be Thatcher Demko, because I think Lankinen's long-term contract now tells me that they're going to do something with Demko.
I know
we heard the whispers too. We heard the whispers that maybe he's not happy there too, and he's got that injury. Although it's just a muscle behind the knee, it's not going to be as bad.
But it's a lot of. It's again, end of the day, you're not doing 4.5.
Yeah.
Yes.
At 4 years,
almost 10 million.
That's a move to me. That is absolutely, to me. They're saying they're trying to go lower cost, long-term starter to account for some of the other parts of Vancouver's roster with contracts and things of that sort. They think Lankinen, at least for now, is good enough to be their goaltender. And that, again, you're probably right. Demko, to me, when that contract was signed, I was like, if you're Thatcher Demko, it's like, that's a decent chunk. I mean, that's a lot of money that you're investing in a backup goaltender.
Right.
Yeah, but the problem is, as Russ just said, is he can't stay healthy, and that's
the problem.
And that's the problem with the potential of him being traded. I mean, maybe a team that is desperate for a goaltender is willing to roll the dice on a guy who's going to make $5 million next year, and then he's a UFA. But the problem is that if it's out there that it's a chronic injury, and that he's missed so much time, are you willing to really roll the dice on that?
It's I don't think the muscle part, I don't think that's a chronic injury. It was the other knee thing that we heard that was a problem. But I don't know if this all equals chronic yet. I'm not willing to go there yet until I see, because when he came back before he went out again, he actually won 2 or 3 in a row.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But at the end of the day, when you're signing another goaltender at 4 times 4.5, that to me is that's a saying it without saying it.
Correct.
Russ, he's the American Matt Murray.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he is right now.
He right now, this moment, yes. So
he hasn't even had the opportunity to win some cups yet before he can call him.
Speaking about the team that has Matt Murray, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Marlies, actually, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know, but he's in the organization.
He's in the organization.
Yes.
Mike. This will give Mike a chance to slag Anthony Stolarz for giving up a lot of goals yesterday. But in the end, the Leafs are still playing good hockey. They I do wonder what they're going to do at the deadline now. I haven't fully formed an opinion on how they're going to roll yet.
Well,
I'm sure you have one, Mike.
Well, something happened last night that could have changed their their path in terms of the deadline, because Chris Tanev got checked along the boards in the first period against the Bruins and left the game, didn't come back. The report today said it's day to day, so it's not it's not anything long term. It looked like it was like a separated shoulder. If it was that, it was probably going to be a month to maybe 6 weeks, and then you probably would have had to address adding not a top 4, but at least somebody who could move up, or somebody who would allow other players to move up, and then they could play bottom pairing. I still think they're going to add a depth defenseman, probably a righty. That the whole Luke Schenn thing. I mean, the report out there, and everybody is putting it together because Elliott, and Elliott's got great sources. He's saying that there's a couple teams out there that are looking to unite the Schenn brothers, and that they, of course, obviously Braden, who's a captain of the Blues, but the Blues apparently are open for business, and Luke can't wait to punch his ticket somewhere. The Leafs loved him. And they offered him a long-term deal when he was there, and he played in the playoffs for them and played with Morgan Rielly. He's probably been the best partner that Morgan Rielly had in his better than Ron Hainsey, better than TJ Brody. But it was
but there's a point.
Not saying much.
But there's a point where are you putting Luke Schenn in the top 4? Like, there's a point where it's going to be an overreach.
No. I mean, I think in the short term, like if they traded for him this year, maybe because really they have Ekman Larson playing as a lefty on the right side, or if they flip flop, that's not working. Jake McCabe, when Tanev got hurt yesterday, he was playing the right side. That was not working. They need a right shot defenseman, and if it's a stopgap to play in the top 4, then Schenn would be for 1 year, and then he could move to the bottom pairing. But they need to add a righty defenseman. It doesn't have to be somebody. It's not going to be Seth Jones. It's not going to be like It could be like a Henry Yokiharu, although Buffalo and Toronto never trade.
They're not trading with each other.
No. But Yokiharu is somebody who's going to get traded. We'll talk about the Sabres in a minute. But with the Leafs, it's going to be a center, and that's why, like I posted on Twitter, it's like dream the impossible dream, Danny, that you're getting a first-round pick for Scott Lawton. I think if the Leafs,
if he does, Mike, I'm going to have such a fun time.
No, I think Anthony, they give up a first-round pick in a Braden Schenn deal because Berube knows Schenn.
No, I know, and that's a different story. I know,
and it would have to be even more than him.
But God help you if it happens. I'm going to let.
Oh no,
you're going to get it.
I'm not the friggin' general manager. I'm just. I know. But I think the fallback.
I mean, you're a co-general manager for a fantasy baseball team, and that's
look where that fucking team is going.
Exactly.
But the guy who's drafting for us really sucks. But
you need better scouts. What are you doing, Cohen? You should be scouting.
We've gotten some good players. This league is rigged.
He's scouting in friggin' Port St. Lucie. That's
this league is rigged. We can't talk about it.
But no, I think that the fallback is going to be Yanni Gourde, and Pierre LeBrun reported yesterday that Gourde is going to play right before the deadline. So he wants to get out of Dodge just like everybody else. And, I think the possibility is Gord's going to go back to Tampa. I don't know how they would work the cap space, but if
don't
he doesn't
worry about it, Mike. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. But Toronto would be a possible destination, but I think they're going to try to get a third line center, preferably somebody who could move up to 2 in a pinch, because we know, Tavares has been hurt this year. Matthews has been hurt this year.
I mean, Mike, I'll give you a right-handed defenseman, but again, I don't think the team would trade with him. I saw Jimmy Murphy saying that teams are asking about Brandon Carlo. He'd be a hell of a top 4 pickup, but I don't think those two teams would.
If Brandon Carlo's in play there, that's a huge opportunity.
And he's got term too. I think he's got 2 more years, and I think he's only making like 4. But yeah, I can't imagine. That the Leafs and the Bruins would make a deal.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about the Sabres. And look, just to put it into perspective, I'm a right shot defenseman too, and Henry Jokiharju's got 6 points on the year. What's his real value here, Mike?
Before Mike answers, he starts with the question about the Buffalo Sabres. Mike gets the Yeti, puts it up to his mouth, and I'm questioning myself. What is in that bottle? Possibly alcoholic, so he makes this go easier.
It's a clear liquid, and it's not H2O. No, well, okay, by the way, Russ, Henry Jokiharju has scored 3 goals in his last 4 games, 2 at the 4 Nations and the game winner yesterday.
Yeah, so now he's got 6 whole points. That's great.
6 whole points. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, with Jokiharju, I mean, the funny thing is like I don't think the Sabres have any interest in re-signing him. They qualified him last year. They got him on a 1-year deal for $3 million. I think so. He's a UFA, and he's going to walk. So I think they'll end up trading him. Although he's like him and Connor Clifton, who can't get in the lineup, are the only right-handed defenseman that they have. But right now, the Sabres are in a weird position, and they're talking because all they're doing is talk. Well, Lindy Ruff is like, well, we got to get 7 of a possible 10 points in the five game blocks that we have, and if we get to that, we have 3 games remaining, and we're 84 points. If we win those, we're at 90. And if I pull this finger and it plays jingle bells, I mean,
even though 90 didn't make the playoffs either last year, but I guess Lindy didn't look at that. But
exactly. It's like I mean, oh my God. I mean, okay, if it's me, I'm trading everybody, and I'm tanking for James Higgins. But they've missed the playoffs 13 years, and he's got to talk that way. I understand. But really,
but fans are smarter than that. They understand.
But they know also that if you pull someone's finger, what actually is going to happen.
That's true too. That's the oldest trick in the book.
But the problem here is that they've got 2 rather attractive pending unrestricted free agents for teams that are contenders. One who's if the team is looking for scoring, Jason Zucker has had a really good year. If they're looking for size and a 2-way ability, Jordan Greenway came back from his injury, has played well since he's come back. Those are 2 guys you could get something for. But the problem here is that Kevin Adams is like, I want to sign the guys. Okay, then sign them, then pay them, because you've got more cap space than friggin' in Christendom. I mean, I don't know what but they're right now. I think they're a budget team, and they don't want to spend the money, and they have like $8, $9, $10 million in cap space. I think there are only 2 teams in the league that have more.
Remember, Mike, only the teams with palm trees are able to attract players.
Right, and so then. How do you attract them? You pay them. You pay them more than other teams will pay them. But I don't know whether they're willing to do that. They said, well, we talked to his agent. Okay, well, if they don't want to stay, then you're going to have to move them. And, that's the thing. So in the next week, you have to find out from Zucker's agent and Greenway's agent whether they want to stay, whether they want to be traded. If they want to be traded, then if they don't want to sign, then you have to trade them.
All right, got 2 more players. Yeah. First one, I think, is just a quick one. Ryan Lindgren. We all know he's going to get traded, so I don't know where he'll go. But I think, they can get a 3rd-round pick for him, and I think somebody's going to do it. So I'm just throwing it out there. We know that there's bigger guys at play, but I don't know if you could trade Kreider or Zibanejad in season like this. So they may have to wait until the draft or even just over the summer to kind of get that done. But I think the Rangers will be moving at least 2 of those players.
I mean, the teams that I look at that I think need a top 4 defenseman, one is Winnipeg. I think if they had a Lindgren, even if Lindgren is on not his last legs, but he's not the defenseman he was a couple years ago.
You can get a run out of him. You can.
Right, exactly. I think Dallas needs a defenseman. I think Florida needs a defenseman. The problem with Florida, they're like Edmonton, and Edmonton is another one. They have nothing to trade, and they have nothing unless you're going to trade Mackie Samoskevich. They have no young prospects, and they have no draft picks, and they have no cap space. Other than that, they're fine. I mean, now if Tkachuk is out the rest of the year, the rest of the regular season, and he comes back for game 1 of the playoffs, then you have cap space, and Bill Zito can work his magic, and that's probably what's going to happen.
Matty Ice will be back.
No. Matt Tkachuk is the new. He's the new Mark Stone.
Mark Stone, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Mark Stone has had his fair share of injuries. So we talked about him, and now I'm trying to forget who he's. Oh, okay. The other player is an Islander in Brock Nelson, and I hear both reports. I hear reports that he's going to be traded. I hear reports he's going to be signed, and I really don't know.
It's Lou, man. Lou's just creating that fog of war.
I guess I don't know which way it's going to go. I think if Nelson is truly, if they ever say he's on the market, he'll be the number 1 target. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think he's going or not? I think he should go. I mean, look, they have a coach in Patrick Waugh who they lost 5-1 to the Rangers, and he said, yeah, we played a great game. And it's like, I hate when coaches do that. I don't even care if you outchanced the team. I don't care. At the end of the day, if you lost by, that many goals, you didn't play great. So they're in just denial in that whole organization, it seems.
Lou is not stupid, but Lou, he's overly loyal.
Yep.
And I think to the point of making decisions that I think just don't make any sense. Like the Palmieri signing a few years ago, like the signing of the JG Pajot signing after he traded for him. Some of the deals have been, the Mayfield 7-year contract,
and for a bad team, they have cap issues too.
It's like the worst. I think we all talk about this before, how those are the worst. Oh, well, we're going to get him out over a long period of time. How are you going to project out 7 in? Yeah. And even I always say this when I see those kind of deals, long term, low cap hit, I go. So you don't think at a certain point of that contract, if the defenseman outperforms that, they're not going to ask for much more than that. I mean, I love that. Those kind of deals.
Nelson's 33 years old, and his performance at the Four Nations did not do Lou any favors.
No, he took good pictures, but he didn't do well.
So if he wants to stay in New York, and he stays for less than he's making now, which is $5 million, fine. And it's a shorter term deal because he's 33. Fine, but that's not. I'm getting the feeling that
$5 million doesn't get you a house in the Hamptons, Mike. Ask Brad Richards.
But yeah, I mean, if it's lower term and lesser money, then fine. But if he's asking for 5 or more, go flat kite. In the Hamptons.
I think he's going to get traded. I do. I think they're going to have no choice, and they're going to have to trade him. And I think they'll get a decent, they'll get a decent price. I mean, I think for Nelson, you will get a first, and you might get a prospect too.
I think he ends up with Minnesota.
Yeah, because that's where he's from.
He's from there, and Joel Eriksson just went down.
Yeah,
and
that's a pathway.
That makes sense. Mike, anybody else you want to mention before we hang it up?
The LA Kings,
they've been surprising. They've surprised the hell out of me. They're at home. They're almost unbeatable, which is crazy.
Yeah, and there's
why are we hearing Byfield?
We shouldn't be. He just made a
highlight reel out there, and it's like then somebody. I shouldn't be hearing that. That makes zero sense to me.
That's it. Well, is he having a disappointing year? I think he has 16 goals.
He's fine.
He's fine, but I look at the Kings, and of course, who are they going to match up with? The Oilers, as usual, and
they might beat them.
Well, no, okay, they're second in the league with 141 goals against, and Darcy Kemper has played better than anybody has expected him to play.
Better than I thought.
Right, but they can't score. Right now it's Fiala and it's Kempe and a couple other guys. They don't have any depth of scoring, and they're not going to beat Edmonton if they can't at least go blow for blow with them.
Well,
so
here's the existential question I will ask you, Mike, and Anthony, you could answer on this too. Maybe they trade Brandt Clark for a legit scorer with.
I mean, Clark's name's been out there, which to me has been kind of crazy to think about.
It is, but
but if you're getting a scoring player in return that's reliable,
right,
then it's entirely possible.
Well, hey, how about Mikko Rantanen?
They wouldn't do it because he's going to be a UFA. That's why they wouldn't do it. Clark's, you got his rights for a while. Rantanen's going to get traded, I think.
Really?
Well, I'll tell you why. Okay. This isn't like Eric Tolsky's done nothing wrong here. He made a good move. He tried to get a guy in there to help their offense. He didn't know how he would do in Brindamore's system. None of us did. But the problem is they do have the owner, Tom Dundon, who always seems to have a number for guys that they bring in. Gensel, he probably gave a number to. He didn't like it. He didn't sign there. And I think the same thing's happening with Rantanen. And I think Rantanen is looking for top dollar, and Tom Dundon does not pay guys outside of his system top dollar. We've not seen it yet.
Well, he supposedly, Anthony, offered him a 9-figure deal, which if 8 years would be 12.5. And and Elliott said it was probably more than 12.5, so probably closer to 13.
Yeah.
That's topping out for Dundon. He's not offering any more than that.
No, that's it. Whatever. Basically, I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. That is a substantial.
It's contract. A substantial offer.
It is a substantial.
But he's not going to outbid anybody. That's
for a non-center. I mean, it's absolutely it's going to come down to, I think, whether or not Rantanen, number one, sees himself, whether he sees himself. If there's enough time. This is where, again, as we go back to where the Four Nations kind of does the service in his situation, because there isn't enough of there doesn't feel to be enough of a window. I think Carolina, I think they do want to keep him. I mean, certainly Derek Tulsky, this is your first big move as a general manager. You want to keep him, but you have to also work within the constraints of what your owner allows you to do.
Right.
Well, I'll just say this. I think the happiest people, if Rantanen signs, will be Darren Ferris and Mitch Marner, because then Marner will be the number one target in free agency. If Rantanen hits the market, I'm not saying Marner won't get paid or Marner will, be diminished. But people, even though Rantanen hasn't played well with Carolina, he's a power forward. He's a big guy. He scored 100 points 2 times. He's won a Stanley Cup.
But Marner scored against the Bruins, Mike, as well.
All things that Marner has not done. He's never scored 100 points. He's never won a Stanley Cup. That counts for something.
Hasn't been out of the second round.
That's true.
Yeah. Still, if Rantanen's out there, Marner's probably not the top guy on the market. That's true. That's just the fact.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. That's it.
Any food takes? Any food takes?
No, I don't really have one at the moment.
No, except for from those crazy. Did I tell you guys those crazy whatever those new Oreos are, the Post Malone Oreos?
Oh, I saw them.
So they're insane. Those things are.
They taste good, or they're insane.
It's a weird thing. The smell of the salted caramel is extremely intense. One of my teachers at my building brought it in. Okay, I tried it. The initial contact of it is, I'm going to have diabetes eating into this.
Well, I already have it, so I don't have it. But one last thing. Last night and on Saturday, in the Sabres game against the Rangers, Rob Ray, the Sabres commentator, took a shot off the brow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was bloodied. He looked like he had been punched by Ty Domi.
Still the toughest guy in that Sabres organization.
Last night, instead of going between the benches, he did his color commentary from the last row in the section that I used to have season tickets. And he's like, oh my God, the view is so great here. Rob clearly was working for the Sabres PR, because I had season tickets in the third row in that section and they sucked.
Wait, Mike, you didn't talk about
the reason
Rob
why
Ray.
Was he went over and he saw, this is the Mike in Buffalo's seat.
Right. You didn't, they should have put a star on it or something, but you didn't talk about Ray breaking the FCC rule because, he said the F word.
Well, I actually asked somebody that question, but it was a spontaneous utterance. So apparently it would not, it wasn't like
they wouldn't get fined for that.
Right. Exactly. And
the net's there. So this time he doesn't have to worry about getting one in the noggin.
Well, no, I mean, if a shot hit him more, that would be a record. But no, anyway.
All right, that's it. That's it for Off the Post. We'll catch everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Anchor Bar.